Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Renegade Immortal 140 based on novel. So let's start. Shu Ligua was startled. His eyes turned and he carefully said, "That. Senior, what is this ancient sword intent?" Ju Yi faintly smiled and said, "Feel it and you will know." With that, his right hand reached out and immediately grabbed Shu Ligua. A ray of light shot out from his eyes and landed in Shu Ligua's eyes. Shu Ligua's body trembled and his eyes were filled with confusion. At this moment, he could clearly feel endless information directly enter his body from the void. He had a feeling of his nascent soul leaving his body like back when he was a nascent soul cultivator. He gradually became lost within the information. Ju Yi released his hand and the golden light disappeared from his eyes. He looked tired. To gift his own inheritance to someone else like this would damage his spirit body. However, he didn't care. If Wang Lin could go through all the danger to save him, he himself wouldn't care about the difficulty of passing on his inheritance to help Wang Lin's sword spirit. Wang Lin, your sword spirit was born with a rebellious nature, so you have to be careful when using it in the future. However, you don't have worry about it too much. I have already left a hidden imprint inside the inheritance. If he tries to betray you, he will suffer backlash from the inheritance. Wang Lin looked at Ju Yi. The fatigue on Ju Yi's face made him sigh deeply. He clasped his hands and softly said, "Senior, thank you." Ju Yi's actions were always decisive, just like how he forcibly gifted Sun Tai as a slave to Wang Lin. Ju Yi shook his head and said, "As long as Ting can awaken, this inheritance is useless to me. Wang Lin, I only ask one thing of you. Help me find Ting father." Wang Lin pondered for a long time before nodding. Ju Yi faintly smiled and his right hand reached out. He grabbed the celestial sword that Shu Ligua was in. He held the sword, took a deep breath, and suddenly slapped it. This slap caused the celestial sword to release a fierce hum, and a strange gas came out from the sword before dissipating. Ju Yi's complexion became extremely pale. His body gradually turned transparent, and it took a long time for him to recover. Wang Lin exclaimed, "Senior Ju Yi, he didn't expect Ju Yi to do this. From now on there are only 3 Rain Celestial Sword. As for this sword, it now belongs to you. Whether it is the sword spirit before me, or the sword spirit after me, we will have no right to control this sword." After Ju Yi finished speaking, he threw the celestial sword at Wang Lin. Wang Lin caught the sword with gratitude in his eyes. This could be considered a huge gift from Ju Yi. There was a total of 4 Rain Celestial Swords. Even if someone were to steal one, as long as Ju Yi existed, they would merely hold temporary control over it. Once they encountered Ju Yi, he would immediately regain control of the sword. Even if Ju Yi no longer existed, if one day the white-robed woman awakens, she could create another sword spirit for the Rain Celestial Swords. The sword spirit would receive the ancient sword intent inheritance and would control the 4 Rain Celestial Sword. It could be said that these 4 Rain Celestial Swords would always belong to sword spirits and the white-robed woman no matter how much time passes or how many reincarnations happen. However, at this moment, everything changed. That slap was from Ju Yi as the sword spirit and as the inheritor of the ancient sword intent. That slap shattered the imprint placed on the sword over the countless years. As the sword spirit of this generation, he was like a mortal emperor. He had divided a portion of his own territory and forever gave it to Wang Lin. From now on, even if the white-robed woman awakens or a new sword spirit forms, they won't be able to control this sword anymore. That's because this was a decree from this generation's sword spirit, Ju Yi. It was comparable to a mortal emperor's royal decree. In addition to this, Ju Yi allowed Shu Ligua to comprehend the ancient sword intent. He opened a door for Shu Ligua, a door to become a supreme sword spirit. These 2 amazing gifts were equal to giving Wang Lin a big chance. A chance to obtain a celestial sword that wouldn't be destroyed even after countless reincarnations, like the white-robed woman. From now on, this celestial sword will forever belong to Wang Lin. Even Shu Ligua will merely be the first-generation sword spirit for this sword. In the celestial realm, only those that obtain the rank of celestial lord can have this chance. Ju Yi let out a sigh. Then his body turned blurry and he entered the celestial sword. I can feel the aura of the last generation rain celestial sword's sword spirit at the bottom of the tide abyss. This is my third gift to you. Let us go. The celestial sword Juyi was in flashed and charged into the depths of the abyss. Wang Lin put Shu Ligua, who was still in a daze and comprehending the inheritance, back into the celestial sword and chased after Juyi. The aura of the last generation's rain celestial sword's sword spirit? Could it be wealth? Wang Lin's heart trembled. Juyi was in front, and with his sword energy charging in front, all obstacles retreated. They arrived directly at the bottom of the tide abyss. This place was a huge, winding corridor with an endless pit in the bottom. It was so deep that not even divine sense could reach the bottom. Strands of faint suction power came from the giant hole. Although it was very faint, it was always there. Standing on the path next to the edge of the hole, a small amount of soil rolled off the edge and was sucked into the deep pit. Wang Lin took a deep breath and looked at the deep pit. With his cunning, he almost immediately guessed that the tide phase that occurred outside was caused by this deep pit. In Wang Lin's mind, he seemed to see the deep pit's eruption creating unimaginable suction force every 5,000 years. Then, through a mysterious channel, the suction force affects the outside world and sucks in countless things into this land. The mysteries of creation caused Wang Lin to feel his own insignificance. What kind of spell could withstand this eruption of suction force every 5,000 years? What kind of spell could reach such power? Even the All-Seer can't do this. I wonder if the person that the All-Seer said has stepped into the third step could. Wang Lin took a deep breath and began to ponder. Where did this pit lead to? Wang Lin didn't know and also wasn't able to guess. However, he knew that if he fell in, it would be impossible to get out. This deep pit is very strange. Don't look at it for too long. Juyi's voice came from the celestial sword. Wang Lin withdrew his gaze, but at the moment he did so, he suddenly heard a very faint voice. Go down. This voice didn't come from the deep pit, but from Wang Lin's bag of holding. It wasn't Yarrow Shishue. Wang Lin's pupils immediately shrank and he looked down at his bag of holding. He split a piece of his divine sense to enter the bag of holding and found that the mysterious scroll he found back on Suzaku had automatically opened. There was a violet light coming from the scroll, creating the shadow of a woman. This figure was extremely beautiful. With her back toward Wang Lin, it was as if she kept softly whispering, "Go down." Wang Lin wasn't unfamiliar with the beautiful figure inside the scroll. Back on Suzaku, when he had to deal with the beasts the third ancestor released, this figure from within the scroll appeared and took control of those beasts. Wang Lin had always been puzzled about this scroll. Right after he reached the ascendant stage, he took out the scroll when he was in the soul refining tribe and made no progress. Although he could leave an imprint on the scroll, he couldn't control it. At this moment, the figure in the scroll appeared once more. Wang Lin sent out a divine sense message. Go down this deep pit. The figure softly whispered again, go down. Wang Lin's eyes lit up and he withdrew his divine sense. He looked down at the deep pit. The pit was completely dark, and all he could see was darkness. After pondering a bit, Wang Lin withdrew his gaze and chased after Juyi. Could there be something inside the deep pit that is related to the scroll? Wang Lin chased after Juyi while pondering. Juyi's voice came from the front. There is a mysterious force inside the pit that affects the mind. If one's mind isn't strong enough, they will fall in. Juyi reminded again, don't look anymore and continue flying. Wang Lin nodded and focused his mind. As he flew with Juyi through the corridor, the suction from the pit would suddenly become strong or weak. After an unknown amount of time, the celestial sword Juyi was in suddenly stopped, and Wang Lin stopped as well. They were already at the eastern part of the corridor, and the path before them was completely dark. Be careful, there is something strange about the pit. Just as Juyi's voice came out, a purple mist suddenly came out from the pit and surrounded the area. Juyi's voice became somewhat illusory inside the mist. Wang Lin's eyes became cold. This mist's appearance was simply too strange. Not only did this mist block sight, it also limited divine sense to less than 30 feet. When he extended any more than that, The divine sense would disappear as if it was devoured by the mist. Even at 30 feet, what he could see with his divine sense was somewhat blurry. At the same time, the suction from the pit seemed to increase with the appearance of the mist. However, this suction had no effect on the mist itself. It was extremely strange. There was a flash of sword light in the mist in front of Wang Lin, and then Ju Yi's celestial sword flew over. It circled around Wang Lin, and Ju Yi sent a divine sense message. "Forget it. Climb up, Wang Lin, and I'll take you over. This mist is a bit strange. I'm afraid there might be danger with your strength." Wang Lin didn't waste time and stepped onto the celestial sword. A surge of celestial spiritual energy came from the sword into Wang Lin's feet and flowed through his entire body. Stabilize your energy, focus your mind, and don't let the celestial spiritual energy escape. Ju Yi's words echoed in Wang Lin's mind. Wang Lin immediately did what Ju Yi said, and the celestial spiritual energy inside his body suddenly trembled. It left his meridians and formed a glittering screen of celestial spiritual energy. Not only did the screen of light contain celestial spiritual energy, it also contained sword energy. The screen spread out and the mist was suddenly pushed back. A tunnel in the mist was formed as if a pair of giant hands had opened a path. Ju Yi turned into a ray of light while carrying Wang Lin and flew directly through the purple mist. As the celestial sword flew through, the purple mist was pushed away. Even when the purple mist wasn't pushed away by the screen, the powerful sword energy from the celestial sword made the purple mist disappear. The celestial sword was too fast, so fast that Wang Lin felt the powerful wind hit his face. The purple mist seemed to have turned into purple dragons that passed the corners of his eyes in the matter of a few breaths of time. After a long time, the celestial sword suddenly made a turn, tilted upwards, and began flying in a spiral. Wang Lin cycled the celestial spiritual energy in his body to stabilize himself so he wouldn't be thrown off the celestial sword. The aura of the last generation's reigned celestial sword's sword spirit is just ahead. Wang Lin, stabilize yourself. I'm about to go at full speed. After Ju Yi finished speaking, he gave Wang Lin a few seconds to prepare himself. Then the celestial sword suddenly accelerated. It was so fast that it even began to create afterimages. It was as if it was teleporting. Wang Lin stood on the celestial sword and felt like 100,000 mountains had just passed by him. He was no longer breathing and was holding a mouthful of celestial spiritual energy. If it was real teleportation, it would have been fine, and Wang Lin wouldn't have felt like this. However, this wasn't teleportation, but they had achieved speed equal to teleportation. The celestial screen distorted and deformed until it was sticking to Wang Lin's body. The celestial sword reached an unimaginable speed. Wang Lin could even see that the mist around him had turned into a sea of mist. This was an illusion caused by the fact that they were going too fast. The feeling that he only had when he had just entered the cultivation world hundreds of years ago appeared once more. This made him quite melancholy. This is the real celestial sword and sword spirit. Although my celestial sword has this strength, the sword spirit is not strong enough to use its full power. Although Shu Ligua has a rebellious nature, this devil likes to bully the weak but fears the strong. This devil won't be able to escape from me. Just at this moment, the purple mist began to churn and began to expand. Then a powerful suction force suddenly came from the bottomless pit where the mist came from. The powerful suction force came too suddenly. The mist that was originally not affected by this suction force was also quickly sucked into the deep pit. The suction force from the pit became stronger and stronger, causing the mist to be quickly sucked into the pit. At the same time, some fine gravel along the walls were also sucked in. At this moment, in the corridor in the distance, there was a large sword stuck in the wall. It began to tremble and started to move little by little out of the wall. Finally, with a bang, it was pulled out from the wall and went directly toward the pit due to the suction force. At this moment, the sword Ju Yi was in flew by. Wang Lin was able to recognize the familiar big golden sword going toward the deep pit. Ju Yi didn't hesitate to turn around and turn toward the deep pit toward the big sword. The suction forces inside and outside the deep pit were extremely different. Now that Ju Yi flew into the pit and was flying toward it, his speed was faster than lightning. In the blink of an eye, they caught up to the big, golden sword. Wang Lin revealed a look of decisiveness while on the celestial sword and immediately caught the big sword. However, the deep pit suction force had already wrapped around the big sword. Now that Wang Lin grabbed the sword, it was the same as stealing a treasure from the deep pit and fighting against the suction force. The moment he grabbed it, there was suddenly a powerful pull. Wang Lin's body became unstable for a moment and he almost fell off the celestial sword. At this moment of crisis, Wang Lin took a deep breath and Underworld River suddenly appeared around him. Under Wang Lin's control, the Underworld River began to spiral violently around him, forming a vortex with him at the center. The suction on Wang Lin weakened and then he immediately pulled on the sword. The big sword stopped falling into the pit and was slowly pulled back. A roar came from Ju Yi, and the roar seemed to contain a sword spirit spell. The sword released a flash of light and Ju Yi suddenly pulled Wang Lin toward the opening of the pit. Wang Lin felt like his body was about to be torn apart. The big sword in his right hand seemed to have infinite weight. He stood on the celestial sword and the veins on his face popped. As Ju Yi's charged upward, the big sword was slowly pulled up as well. Wang Lin's eyes were filled with determination. At this moment, he mustn't let go. He was afraid this sword would never see the light of day again if he let go. While Ju Yi charged up, the big sword held by Wang Lin slowly flew up as well. The gold on the sword had all fallen off, revealing a completely black sword. The remaining jewels on the hilt of the sword had all shattered and had been sucked into the deep pit. Ju Yi let out a roar, increasing the power of the celestial sword, and the big sword was pulled up several dozen more feet. Wang Lin used more celestial spiritual energy and made the Underworld River spin even faster. This constantly weakened the suction force. Finally, Ju Yi rushed out of the deep pit with Wang Lin. At the moment they charged out, Wang Lin let out a roar. The big sword was pulled out and landed in Wang Lin's hand. There was a shallow word carved on the big sword, wealth. While holding wealth, many memories from the past flashed across Wang Lin's mind. He took a deep breath, and before he had time to look, Ju Yi quickly pulled him away down a corridor nearby. Ju Yi's speed was very quick as he moved through the corridor. Wang Lin sent out a divine sense message to Ju Yi, leading him to the only exit in the Tide Abyss, the exit at the Fire Demon Country. Wang Lin held wealth in his hand and carefully looked at it before putting it in his bag of holding. That glance earlier allowed him to see some clues about the sword. If his cultivation wasn't enough, he wouldn't have seen anything, but now that his cultivation had reached the ascendant stage, it was different. However, right now was not the time to study, so he put it inside his bag of holding. Wang Lin was prepared to carefully study it after leaving the Tide Abyss. The trip to the Tide Abyss is complete. Unfortunately, I have no clue where the mysterious token is, Wang Lin began to ponder. Inside Wang Lin's bag of holding, the mosquito beast opened its eyes and revealed a hint of doubt. Normally, when inside the bag of holding, unless it used an amazing spell, it shouldn't be able to feel what was outside. However, at this moment, he felt that there were many auras that gave him a very familiar feeling. After hesitating for a bit, the mosquito still couldn't figure it out. It looked at the still sleeping Thunder Toad, laid down on the Thunder Toad's back, and closed its eyes. With Ju Yi's speed, they got closer and closer to the Fire Demon Country's exist. At the same time, they were getting closer and closer to the mist and the large amount of mosquitoes surrounding Greed and his group. In the Demon Spirit Land, a cloud was flying closer from the south. This cloud was filled with celestial spiritual energy as if was something from the celestial realm. It released bursts of light, and as it flew across the sky, it filled the sky with color. There were two people standing on this auspicious cloud, a man and a woman. The male was in an upright posture, wearing a blue robe with azure clouds embroidered on them, and the clouds even gave off ripples. His long hair flowed behind him, revealing a handsome face. He faced the wind and held a green jade flute in his hand. Along with how his cloth fluttered in the wind, he was like a celestial. Behind him, the woman was wearing a lavender dress embroidered with small, pink flowers. Her hair was loosely tied into a bun with a lavender hairpin inside. Although it looked casual, it didn't lose its elegance. She had light makeup on, and her lips were red without the use of any cinnabar. It could be said that her body was soft and her aura was fragrant. The woman's eyes would occasionally look at the man beside her, and her eyes contained tenderness. It was obvious these two were a cultivation couple. Although normal cultivators could ride clouds and fog, they were normal white clouds and fog made from water vapor. These kinds of spells were considered low quality. Not only was that method not fast, but there wasn't anything special about it. It was only used by some people to pretend to be celestials to fool mortals. However, this cultivation pair was different. This cloud was refined from the ninth heaven cloud. Even back before the collapse of the celestial realm, it was extremely rare. The power of this cloud lay in the fact that it naturally contained celestial lightning, so its power was naturally not to be underestimated. The older generation of cultivators would immediately recognize the two after seeing the cloud. The reason was that only people at the same realm as the blood ancestor, Ling Tianhu, and the All-Seer could ride on a cloud like that. The celestial cloud cultivation couple. The cultivation couple that came to the demon spirit land back then with Ling Tianhu and the All-Seer. They occupied one of caves and hadn't left for tens of thousands of years. Wang Wei, Hu Huan. These two people's cultivation could already match the All-Seer and company. Adding on the fact that the two were good at working together, even All-Seer was extremely cautious of them. What the All-Seer dreaded even more was the origin of those two. These two people's identities were extremely mysterious. Even the All-Seer couldn't find out anything about them. He only vaguely knew that these two people had been cultivating for longer than even him. Luckily, these two had a very peaceful nature and didn't like to fight for power. As long as one didn't provoke them, there would be no problem. If the short old man saw these two people, he would definitely immediately recognize them and gnash his teeth. These two were the people that stole a bag of holding from him back then. The two of them rode the cloud and flew directly toward the fire demon country. At the moment the cloud entered the fire demon country, Bei Lu, who was under the capital of the sky demon country, suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes gave off a very bright, golden light, but that light soon disappeared. They actually left the cave. It looks like I have to increase the speed of devouring the other ancient demon souls. There was a very well-hidden sense of dread in Bei Lu's eyes. As the celestial cloud flew directly into the fire demon country, all of the clouds in the sky were forced out of the way. Even the demon generals and soldiers in the cities were all shaken. They didn't dare to fly out to check at all. Not long after, the celestial cloud stopped at the Tide Abyss exit. The cloud gradually disappeared and the two landed. The man's eyes were filled with interest as he smiled at the woman next to him. Interesting. Huan, there are some restrictions here. These restrictions are pretty clever. The woman's eyes were filled with joy as she said, with a graceful voice, there aren't many restrictions that can arouse your interest. The gentle breeze caused the grass on the ground to shake slightly. The man's and woman's clothes also swayed with the breeze. The man looked at the ground with a look of admiration in his eyes and smiled. These restrictions include ancient restriction techniques. There is also a hint of celestial restrictions. Not simple. The woman beside him played with her hair next to her ear. She looked on the ground and gently nodded. The ancient restriction techniques are very skilled, but the celestial restrictions are a bit rough. It looks like this person had just learned celestial restrictions. The man nodded in agreement and said this must be a cultivator with heritage from ancient cultivators. This person is so skilled with ancient restrictions that he must have cultivated for at least 10,000 years. The woman shook her head and gently said, that might not be true. You haven't personally met the person who placed the restrictions. The man laughed and said, Huan, are you trying to test your husband? How about you and I make a bet? If the person who placed the restrictions hasn't cultivated for 10,000 years, it is my loss. How about it? The woman smiled and looked at the man with tenderness in her eyes. She said, how could such a small restriction catch the attention of Cloud Celestial Wang Wei, who claims to be able to see through all celestial restrictions? The man smiled and shook his head. You're avoiding the issue. I don't believe you haven't already seen through these restrictions. Although the restrictions are rough, there was much thought behind them, and they are extremely ingenious. Look at these restrictions. If it was anyone other than the two of us, and they were just a bit careless, they would not have noticed the restrictions. These restrictions were not made to kill, so they give off no killing intent. However, they are linked by divine sense, so if anyone were to enter this area, they would immediately be detected by the person who placed the restrictions. These are not the main point. If this was it, it wouldn't have caught my interest. Look over there. The man pointed to some grass. The wind blew and the grass moved with the wind. There didn't seem to be anything abnormal there. The man's eyes revealed a mysterious light and he said, "If I'm not mistaken, there isn't just one restriction here. Instead, there are a chain of restrictions linked together. As long as not all of them are broken at once, the person who set the restrictions will still know that someone has triggered a restriction." As he spoke, his right hand reached out. All of the grass was pressed down except for one that still moved with the wind. Placing restrictions in the air is considered a low-level method. Placing it inside an object is only considered a mid-level method. However, look at this grass. Juana, look carefully. Can you see what is different about this grass? The woman was quite surprised. She knew Wang Wei too well. Although he was easygoing, when he encountered restrictions, he would become a different person. However, because of this, it was impossible for ordinary restrictions to catch his eyes. The light in his eyes right now was a rare sight. The woman took a careful look and then revealed an astonished expression. She softly said, "The grass contains falseness within the truth." Wang Wei's eyes revealed a hint of joy and he waved his right hand. The blade of grass was pulled up from the root and fell in his hand. He nodded. "Yes, this blade of grass is real, but the liquid inside is fake." As he spoke, he rubbed the grass with his 2 fingers. A strand of white grass suddenly appeared around the blade of grass. As the white gas circled the blade of grass, the liquid inside quickly came out. As the liquid came out, the grass was no longer green but slowly turned yellow. Soon, a drop of crystal clear blue liquid appeared above the man's palm. This drop of blue liquid was crystal clear. One after another, the restrictions inside flashed. It was dense due to the countless restrictions inside. The man revealed a look of admiration once more. He looked at the liquid above his palm and whispered, "There are more than 1,000 restrictions here, and they are perfectly linked together. The restrictions can take the form of a drop of liquid due to how stable the structure is. Although these restrictions are very common, the more common the restriction, the harder it is to perfectly link them like this. This is why only someone who has cultivated for over 10,000 years can create a restriction like this. Only a cultivator that has experienced various changes in life, someone who's experienced countless life and death scenarios, and someone who has found their own Tao can have the cunning to deduce such a restriction. If it wasn't for 10,000 years of time, how could one experience all the changes in life? How could one see through life and death? How could one forge such an exquisite scheme? Making restrictions doesn't have much to do with talent, it is much more related to mentality and one's ability to scheme. Wang Wei's eyes revealed a hint of reminiscence. The woman's eyes were filled with tenderness. She stood beside the man and said, "Don't think too much. Didn't you want to bet with me? I bet that the person who placed these restrictions hasn't cultivated for 10,000 years." The man smiled, and the reminiscence in his eyes disappeared. He looked meaningfully at the woman and smiled. "Okay. We'll just wait here to see the result while we wait for that greed to appear." The woman smiled. "I wonder what that greed will do when he sees us. Will he resist, or obediently hand over the token? He won't dare to resist." The man smiled. His tone was very calm without any trace of anger. The moment greed entered the demon spirit land, the cloud celestial couple was already aware of him. After all, the two had spent tens of thousands of years here. They had thoroughly researched one of the fake caves here, and the treasures they obtained were countless. In addition to being good at restrictions, Wang Wei was also good at divination. Although not as good as the All-Seer, it was possible to calculate the location of greed and other changes. As for the token, the two of them had also calculated its location. However, this token was extremely strange, and to obtain it, the two of them must do it at a certain time. This was why they hadn't done anything earlier and were now waiting at the exit in the Fire Demon country. Forgetting the two of them for now, inside the Tide Abyss, Wang Lin was riding on Ju Yi's celestial sword as they charged directly toward the exit like a bolt of lightning. Ju Yi's speed was extremely quick. After several days, they traveled through the corridors to the crack under the Fire Demon country. All they needed to do now was fly out from there to leave the Tide Abyss. The Fire Demon country's exit was the only place without any resistance going up. Instead, there would be resistance going down. Here, one's speed would seem to be pushed infinitely by a force, allowing one to become even faster. While flying inside the crack toward the Fire Demon country, Wang Lin's eyes were very calm. He stood on the flying sword, heading straight up, and everything beside him seemed to have turned into a blur. Just at this moment, the celestial sword under him suddenly slowed down. The sword circled a few times before stopping, and Ju Yi sent a divine sense message. Wang Lin, there is something wrong. I was using my sword divine sense to check in front of us and found that there is purple mist ahead. There seems to be some cultivators trapped there, but what is strange is that my sword divine sense can't pierce this purple mist. Trapped cultivators? Along the way, Wang Lin didn't see Murong Zhuo and the two women. Wang Lin's eyes narrowed and he wondered if it was those three. The moment Wang Lin and Ju Yi paused, the dense swarm of mosquitoes spread out on the other side of the purple mist. Their deep red eyes fiercely stared at the purple mist. The mosquito beasts already looked fierce, and adding on their fierce gazes, they looked even more frightening. They flapped their wings and released a buzzing sound that echoed across the area. However, due to the mysterious pressure pushing upward toward the exit, the sound didn't travel far. These mosquito beasts were huge, but their abdomens were flat. They had clearly been hungry for a long time. However, their long mouths gave off a cold light as if they were sharp swords. They weren't all black, some of them were gray. The hair on their bodies was like thorns, it made them look very frightening. They surrounded the purple mist but didn't enter deep into it. They kept circling the purple mist, and the oppressive atmosphere they gave off became even stronger. There were a few pieces of cloth and dried blood stains on the wall. There was also a large sword that was completely dim. Inside the dense mosquito swarm, sometimes their mouths would collide and sparks would fly. This made the mosquitoes buzz even louder as if they were about to kill each other. Every time a situation like this happened, a loud buzz would come from the depths of the mosquito swarm. When this sound appeared, the surge to slaughter each other would immediately be suppressed. However, maybe due to staying here for too long, the mosquito beast's violent nature was becoming more difficult to suppress. At this moment, two mosquito beasts' mouths touched, and they both immediately let out howls and began killing each other. A sharp cry came from the depths of the mosquito swarm. The two mosquitoes fighting immediately paused for a moment, but their fierce nature took over. They disregarded the roar and continued to fight. The sharp cry came one more, and this time the mosquito swarm dispersed, making a path. This time a mosquito around 100 feet long that contained a small hint of purple slowly flew out. Although there was purple on this mosquito beast, it was very faint. There were 7 needles stabbed into the head of this mosquito beast's head. The needles would release bursts of light and the mosquito's eyes would sometimes reveal a hint of pain. Its appearance immediately caused the two mosquitoes that were fighting to stop. Both of their eyes were filled with ferocity. The mosquito with some purple on its body let out a cry. This cry seemed to contain some kind of spell, and it caused all of the mosquitoes to immediately tremble. Using this change, the purple mosquito moved its wings and moved like lightning. It immediately arrived next to the two mosquitoes, then its huge mouth stabbed at the two. After inhaling, the two mosquitoes immediately withered and the two withered bodies fell from the air. The purple mosquito turned around and coldly looked at the surrounding mosquitoes. The rest of the mosquitoes immediately let out submissive buzzes and no longer dared to fight with each other. The purple mosquito turned around and slowly went back into the middle of the herd. The purple mosquito's body gave off a sense of age. This video will end here.